the way back, the ship back, and he had a round trip ticket. He had a return ticket that he had received, and had he decided to go back, had he taken the journey back, would anyone have blamed him for that move to go back? No, right? I mean, suppose coming over, he had those heart attacks on the ship, right? He suffered 2 heart attacks in 2 days. Had he arrived in New York and sat down on the next ship and gone back home, at that point, right away, would anyone have blamed him? No. I mean, heart attacks, right? And the one thing that everyone forgives is health. If there's a health issue, then we say, it's okay, don't worry, you get a clean break. If you want to get out of doing anything, then you always help. It's a clean cut. No one would have blamed him. Had he, despite that health issue, he showed up in New York Harbor, he got off, he says, I didn't know whether to turn left or to turn right. And he tried, he struggled. He stayed at the house of Sally Agarwal in Butler, Pennsylvania, and he began his process, talking to people, chanting, and so on. At that point, he struggled for a year. And finally, he was robbed. His apartment was broken into, and whatever little bits of things he had, his typewriter, and little things here and there, were stolen from him. At that point, if he had said, I tried for a year, I tried to follow the instructions of my guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who told me to preach in English and preach in the West, and had he turned back and said, I'm going to take that ship back, would anyone have blamed him? No. Everyone would have said, he tried, right? I mean, look at the nature of Kali Yuga. People are so uninterested in this message. He tried, it didn't quite work. It's not his fault. It's good he went home. Forget all of this. If he were to just stay in Vrindavan, a man of 70 years old, he was living in Vrindavan at the Radha Damodar temple, writing books in English, translating Srimad Bhagavatam. If he had said, look, my contribution is I will translate these books into English, let someone else go to America. Had he not come here, would anyone have blamed him? No. They would have said, of course, this is a smart thing to do. You're 70 years old. I mean, think about your own grandfather. Whatever his age might be, or maybe he may not be even around anymore. Think about your grandfather. Perhaps he's not in good health. Perhaps he's in very good health and very active. Whatever his situation may be, imagine that grandfather leaving his home, wherever his home may be, in India, here, wherever, and traveling across the world to a different part of the world. I don't know, Zambia, someplace like that. Okay? Someplace away from what he's used to, and starting a new movement. Can you imagine that? It's difficult to imagine, no matter how strong our grandfathers are. It's very difficult to imagine. It's difficult to imagine for us. No one would have blamed him had Prabhupada given up in Vrindavan, had he given up after the ship journey, had he given up when he tried for a year. Then after some time in the United States, he had another health crisis after he had made a few disciples. He could have returned and given up then. No one would have blamed him. But you see, Prabhupada's goal was not to be blameless. It's for a lot of us to be good, blameless people that no one can blame or criticize, is what we aim for, what we hope, right? That no one should be able to criticize me. I do the right things, I'm raising a good family, I come to the temple and I pay my namaskar to the Lord and I do my seva. See, I'm just right. And then someone criticizes us and we feel, why are you criticizing me? I'm just right. I'm not worthy of blame. And for us, that's enough. But for Prabhupada, being blameless was not enough. It was actually a very low standard to be blameless. Because to be blameless is one thing, and to be praiseworthy is a different thing. Prabhupada was not interested in just living a good life, living a pure life. That he already had in Vrindavan. His goal was to do something more, to create a revolution. Prabhupada was a revolutionary. Not of the type of guns and, manifestos and that kind of thing. He was a spiritual revolutionary. And his aim was to do something that would change the face of the earth, that would change the world. And a revolutionary cannot hide behind the safety of trying to be blameless, of trying to be just perfect, trying to be right. Because that's safe, right? To do all the right things and stay within what society expects us is safe. But it's not great. It's not great. And Prabhupada's spiritual master had asked him to strive for something more. Living your life in Vrindavan and chanting Hare Krishna and reading the scriptures is a wonderful life. It's a pure life. But his guru asked him to do more, to be a revolutionary. And Prabhupada writes this sentence, which I love very much. I find it one of the most beautiful sentences in all of his writing. He says, this literature, speaking of Srimad Bhagavatam, is meant to bring about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Every word is full of meaning. Every word is special in that sentence. This literature, and the movement born from it, is meant to bring about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. And if you look at Srila Prabhupada's life, then every aspect of it was revolutionary. He was revolutionary in his view of the world. Generation after generation, thousands of years, the sages of India had stayed in India. Because this was the land where they could practice their spiritual life and be understood by the mass of people, where they would be supported, where there was enough purity of practice that they could maintain their own spiritual practice. There was very little risk. And they stayed there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the rest of the people of the world, this idea that they're malechas, they're yavanas, they're bad, they're unclean, they're uncultured, there's something wrong with them, other races, other nationalities. That idea of racism is present all over the world. In India, you find it, just like you find it in America, you find it in Africa, you find it in Europe. Everywhere in the world, every civilization thinks we are the best. We are the pinnacle of the world, of the history of the world. And there will be no civilization greater than ours. And everyone else is a mere approximation to us. The Chinese think this way, the Indians think this way, the Pakistanis think this way. Everyone thinks like this. And Prabhupada, he started a revolution. For the first time in the history of Hinduism, of India, of any of the traditions coming from India, Prabhupada accepted disciples. He taught people of every race and every nationality, telling them, look, if you actually believe, telling his own godbrothers in India and his own countrymen in India, saying, you believe in the words of the Gita, Krishna says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. Pandita sees everyone equally, whether, what to speak of a human being, even if they're a cow or a dog. A Pandit says they're equal, they're the same. They're all the spirit soul. So if you actually believe this, why do you see others in this way? He was a revolutionary based on caste. The grip that the caste system had in India in the 19th century, it's incredible. We cannot imagine now living in today's world. We still see its effects, but back then, it was so bad. Someone of a lower caste could sprinkle you with water and you would lose your caste. That means your whole family and your community would reject you, would throw you out. It was so tight and so strict. And someone of a lower caste could not enter a temple. What to speak of actually worship the Lord? Prabhupada, regardless of caste, regardless of nationality, come one, come all. When he took his first group of disciples back from the United States to India, there were two reactions. One reaction was, wow, this is amazing. If these people can do it, why are we forgetting our tradition, our culture? If they are so eager about it, we must have something valuable. Right? If someone gets excited about something in your home, then you start to see it in a new light. You think, oh, that is a nice painting. I never noticed it. Because someone else valued it. So Prabhupada brought this group of people. That was the one reaction. When they went to Ahmedabad, for example, they got such a grand reception from all the people there in the city. But the other reaction was from the establishment, from the elite, from the people in positions of religious authority, saying, how dare you defile our tradition? How can you bring these unclean, uncouth people? Forget lower caste, these people have no caste. They're not even part of the tradition. And you bring them, and you give them diksha, and you give them this sacred thread of the Brahmins? This is wrong. This is horrible. And he got so much criticism like this. And Prabhupada kept pointing back to the scriptures, to Srimad Bhagavatam, where Prahlad Maharaj is teaching the Rakshasas, the demons, the Danavas, and saying, you too can become devotees of the Lord. Kirata, Hunandra, Pulinda, Pulkasha. Any group, any species, any group of people, Papa Yonaya, even if we consider them so low, in the eyes of the Lord, they're not low. It's the quality of the heart that matters to the Lord, not one's physical body. In terms of nationality, in terms of caste, in terms of gender, Prabhupada was a revolutionary. Up to the point Prabhupada started this ISKCON movement, there was no shining example of any institution where women could not only participate, but could teach, give class, do worship on the altar, chant Vedic mantras, receive Brahman Diksha. Throughout the history of Hinduism, this was not done, except in very ancient times. It had been lost. That practice had been lost. And everything was contained in the hands of a few very high caste Brahmin men. That's all. And everyone else had no access to the scriptures. And Prabhupada said, why not? Why he gave Brahman Diksha to women, which was unheard of, and said, no, you too chant the Gayatri Mantra. You too worship on the altar. You too sit here and give Bhagavatam class and teach. Man, woman, child, he said, it doesn't matter. In the eyes of the Lord, everything is the same. The physical body is not important. In terms of caste, in terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of his message, he was revolutionary. He came at a time when the world was running towards this capitalist mode of consumption. How can we get more and more and more? Every man, woman, and child should have a car, and every man, woman, and child should have a color TV. Everyone is entitled to more food than they can eat. Everyone is entitled to fast food, so we can all die of heart disease together. This was the mode, the idea of consumption. How can we get more and more and more? And America was the model of that consumption. It was the pinnacle of it. The world looked to America to say, these people know how to consume. These people know how to eat. I'm pretty sure eating contests are an American invention. I'm very sure about that. This was the world, including India, especially India, was looking towards America for this reason. Even London had become old-fashioned, right? The king and the queen. America was where to... And Prabhupada showed up in the den of the lion, in the heart of the forest, of the jungle, and said, here I will teach my message of minimizing, of living as simply as possible. In the land that invented meat for every human being for every meal, you know? Even in meat-eating cultures, no one historically used to eat meat for every meal, every day. For breakfast, bacon, for lunch, a hamburger, for dinner, pizza with pepperoni. Right? This was the country that gave the world the possibility of eating meat every meal, every day. Prabhupada said, I will come there and tell them, don't eat meat. Free love, no illicit sex. Only in marriage. No intoxication at a time where every person was experimenting. Not just with pot, not just with marijuana, but LSD and heroin and all kinds of drugs. Prabhupada showed up in the den of the lion and said, I challenge you. No meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. Give up your elaborate clothing. Wear rags and sheets. Go around and dance on street corners. Live a simple life. Cut your hair. Make it clean. He was a revolutionary. His message was revolutionary. But most importantly, he brought about a revolution in people's hearts. He changed the hearts of people who we could not imagine would become who they are today. People who come from backgrounds that have committed every kind of sin in this world. It might be even our own selves if we look honestly. And Prabhupada changed their hearts. He built temples in every major city and town, but he also built temples in every heart. In the heart of every devotee and disciple, changed the hearts of thousands and thousands of people. He was a revolutionary. And we, as his followers, this is our mission. This is our legacy. This is our heritage. We too are called to be revolutionaries. It's not enough to be just good in this world, to be blameless, to be just fine, that everyone says, he's a good man. No, we need to do something that'll change. Change us, change the world around us. Our revolution begins with our own hearts. And then from our own hearts, it extends to our families and to our communities, to our country and to our world. We can all do that. Maybe not in the same grand scale as Prabhupada did, even though he said, if anyone can do it. He said, if one Indian can do this, all of you are Indians, he used to say. This is what one Indian did. If all of you did this, imagine what would happen. When he was speaking in India, he would say like this. But we say we cannot be like Prabhupada. We are his followers, his humble servants. But we can still do some revolution. We can make a change. A powerful change. It starts here. It starts here. By connecting with Srila Prabhupada. By imbibing his mood, his mission, his sense of revolution. The vehicle for this revolution that Prabhupada brought was his books. If you look at every revolutionary movement in the history of the world, you know where it starts? Through writing. Through writing and speaking. Through sound vibration. This has been the theme for the weekend. Through sound, whether you look at the communist revolution, whether you look at the capitalist revolution, whether you look at any kind of the feminist revolution, any kind of revolution, In the world, it all starts with the written or spoken word. Martin Luther King we saw, right? In the movie. That was the basis of Prabhupada's revolution, his books. And to this day, we can cultivate a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada through his books, imbibe his mood, and decide, I too am going to do something to change the world. In order to do that revolution, we need two things. Well, we need many things, but there's two things I want to mention. We need, first of all, we need a sense of determination. It's not the scope of what we do, the grandness of our ideas. It's our determination. This is something I want to do, to offer to Srila Prabhupada, to change the world around me. And I'm going to do it with half, at least, the determination that Prabhupada showed in his work. And the second thing we need is the ability to give up the desire for credit. There's no limit to what we can accomplish in the world if it doesn't matter who gets the credit. So much of what we do, we hold ourselves back because we start calculating who's getting the credit here. Should I actually invest my time or energy? Are the benefits, the returns going to come to me? Why did that person take the credit when I did all the work? But if we give up that mood, who gets the credit? This is the essence of humility. And we think, I'm going to do something for Krishna, for Prabhupada. We can create a revolution. Even if that revolution is just in your family, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. It's not to be discounted. No one can claim that I don't have enough resources, I don't have enough knowledge, I'm not great enough, therefore I'm not Prabhupada, therefore I can't do that. No, we can do it in our own way, in our own place, in our own time, in the resources that Krishna has given us. We just have to find our own sphere and say, in this sphere, I'm going to do it. I give you one little example that's very close to me, that was a model for me, and that was my own parents. When my father got a job in Boise, Idaho. How many people know where Idaho is? Heard of Idaho? Not Iowa. Idaho. Not Ohio. Idaho. Potatoes. Idaho. My parents said, where? Where's this Idaho? Boise? No one's heard of Boise. It was a tiny little town when they moved there, 100,000 people. And the prospects of doing anything revolutionary was unthinkable. And yet, in that space, 100,000 people, small space, practically no Indian community, and they created a revolution in Boise. A beautiful temple today, with many devotees and wonderful deities. And the entire town, the entire city knows what Hare Krishna is. It's become a household word in Boise, Idaho. Our closest big city is 6.5 hours drive away. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. If we get 2 visiting devotees a year, we feel very proud. If you get one every weekend here in Tawako. The point being, there's no excuse for not creating a revolution. No excuse. It doesn't matter whether we're a man, a woman, a child, whether we're very powerful, whether we're very rich, or we have no money at all, whether we're full of knowledge or we have no knowledge at all. There's no excuse not to create a revolution of the heart. And that's what Prabhupada is asking of us. That's his calling. That was his mission. He wanted to set an example. He wasn't intending to be the last person. Now I did it, all of you enjoy. And he said, no, I've just shown you how. Now you do the same thing. Now you do the same thing. So let's not be sheep and follow along one another. There's no point in living life like that. Let's try to effect a change around us, a change of the heart. Let's start with our own selves, and whatever field of influence Krishna has given us, we want to create a revolution there. So, conscious of time, I want to end by reading some very beautiful Sanskrit prayers for Srila Prabhupada. For those of you who attended the seminar, you know the background for this, but for those who haven't, my Sanskrit teacher was Professor Mudumbai Narasimhachari. He was the head of the Department of Vaishnavism at the University of Madras in India, and a visiting professor at Oxford in England, University of Oxford, where he visited several times. And I was studying there, and I had the good fortune of his association there. And Narasimhachari spent a couple times there, maybe 6 months in total. And during his visit, I would take him to some different temples, ISKCON temples in the United Kingdom. Bhaktivedanta Manor is famous. Smaller temples also, Coventry and Birmingham and places like that. And he was very affected by these visits. And he said, it's really amazing what Srila Prabhupada has done. Now, as background, he's passed away now some years ago, but he was an acharya in the Sri Sampradaya, in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. It's a tradition that comes from Ramanujacharya, very ancient Vaishnava tradition, and very learned and very devoted also. And he said, what Prabhupada did is so amazing because he was able to change the hearts of young people, he said. Back in India, we struggled to convey this tradition to the youth. The older people know it, but the younger people not interested. And somehow Prabhupada was able to get the youth involved of all different races and nationalities. He was very moved by his visits to these temples. And so without telling me, he went to the library there in Oxford, and he found Srila Prabhupada's biography, 7 volumes long. I really encourage you to read it. How many people here have read the biography of Prabhupada? Not so many. So if you have a chance, read it. It's the best bedtime reading you will find.
Weekly readings every Tuesday on the phone.
Weekly readings every Tuesday on the phone. Read it to your kids at night. This is what my mother used to do. It was so fun. Believe me, it's like a great story. And choose the whole 7 volume, not the condensed one. Go the full 9 yards. Start with volume 2 for the kids because it's more active. It's after he comes to America. But for you, you should start with volume 1. And he read all these 7 volumes and really moved by it. And so one day he came to me and he said, Ravi, before I leave Oxford, I'm going to compose 100 verses in Sanskrit in praise of Srila Prabhupada, a Prabhupada Shatakam. Now, this Professor Narasimhachari, he had received the title of Ashu Kavishekara in India, namely, he who is able to compose Sanskrit verses on the spot. And literally, for any occasion, some nice day, and he would compose some verses in Sanskrit, like we find in Gita and Bhagavatam. Beautiful verses. I once made photocopies for him, and he thanked me in a beautiful Sanskrit verse. Very flattering. And I asked him, there was a special occasion, Prabhupada's disappearance day, we were observing. And there was a nice meal, and I said, can you please write some verses in praise of Prabhupada? He said, okay, give me 2 minutes. And he sat in his office for 2 minutes, came up with 8 beautiful prayers for Srila Prabhupada, and recited them to everyone who had assembled. So, a man of incredible skill and learning and wisdom. And he composed 100 verses, 60 of which he wrote in one night, in the span of just one. It flowed and flowed, and the rest he wrote in a couple of weeks after that. So we unfortunately don't have time to read all 100 verses, but I have selected some of my favorites. Okay, so it's on the screen above my head, and maybe it'll be easier to read. Are you able to? I have the sheet, but maybe just put one verse at a time on, and we'll go down the column. Yes. So. The light's okay? You can see it?
Yeah, that is okay.
So, especially for people at the front, please repeat loudly. I'm going to sing each line and you can, actually that may take too much time. Why don't we all sing together, okay? And what we'll do is, we'll do this melody. Okay? So, let's read the verses together, and then I will just read the translation on my own, and then we'll go to the next verse, we'll read together like that, okay? And try to meditate on the meaning of these verses as you read the translations. Okay, here we go. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Nam Karunya Piyusha Mahaprabha Ekatra Loke Purusheva Tirna Saeva Chasmat Guru Sarvabhauma. The great river of the nectar of Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's compassion has descended to earth in one person. That is our Srila Prabhupada, the emperor among spiritual masters. Dhritva chakante nalinakshkamala bhadva lalate rasadurvapundram nityam chadayam shamukunda naman yujjaishcha charatra gurur dharityam. Wearing a necklace of tulasi beads around his neck, and placing the radiant Vaishnava Tilaka upon his forehead, our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, traveled the earth, dancing and chanting the names of Lord Mukunda in a loud voice. Daram Shaputram Abhibandhu Vargam Sandhyasya Sarvam Grihadharma Jatam Sarvam Jagat Sriya Kutumba Meve Yabhi Pravede Guru Sarvabhauma. Renouncing wife, children, relatives, and everything related to household duties, Srila Prabhupada, the emperor among spiritual masters, considered the entire world his own family. Videshayata Asavir Prabhurvan Shri Bhakti Siddhantam Upadidesha Paschatya Deshe Yamano Pujanam Vikasakapopi Divakaroso. Traveling repeatedly to foreign countries, Srila Prabhupada taught the doctrine of devotional service. He was the sun who made the lotus-like hearts of the Westerners blossom. Isn't that nice? To the top. Do page up and see if it goes faster. Keep going. There we go. Paschatya deshe shupita vivasa janasate prakrita bhogamana aridra vishwantu tulya dharmena hina iti sodhayachat. Srila Prabhupada thought like this on board the ship to America. The people living in the Western countries are absorbed in material enjoyment. In matters of eating, sleeping, etc., they are no better than animals, and they are devoid of religious principles. Madhyam chamamsam mahiledi matva svajivanam vyarthamadhacharanta samsara chakra brahmanopayata katham nuraksha iti dukito bhut. Reveling in wine, meat, and women, they are now wasting their lives and are thus wandering in the cycle of samsara. How can they be saved? In this way, Srila Prabhupada was distressed over their condition. Shri Rama Rame Gopi Bhakti Shri Krishna Krishne Navati Kashit Nama Dvayam Tad Muni Sarva one chants Sri Rama Rama, no one chants Sri Krishna Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, the emperor amongst sages, was certain that these two names could liberate the people. Najati linga dhyavimara chinta nadesha kala shamayo yagava nagopyuvati bhuvanatrayepi syadasya mantrasya jape jananam. There is no qualification needed within the three worlds to chant this Hare Krishna mantra. There is no condition of eligibility based on a person's caste, gender, etc. Nor is there consideration of a suitable place, time, or order of life. And then this next part is the favorite of my favorite verses. So the next several ones are very nice. Swayam parishramya dhanayuparja Shri Radhika Natha Dayavalambi Vinirmame Sau Guru Sarvabhauma Sadbhakti Samrajya Makandatama. Thus, depending upon the mercy of Shri Krishna, the Lord of Radhika, Srila Prabhupada personally worked hard and collected funds. That emperor among spiritual masters built a kingdom of pure bhakti, a territory with no boundaries. Shri Radhika Vallabha Mandiranam Nirmanamasena Param Harivyam Sadbhakta Chitteswami Chitrametat Guru Tamena Pratibhayutena. With great intuition, the best among spiritual masters, Srila Prabhupada constructed temples of Lord Krishna, the beloved of Sri Radhika, all over the world. At the same time, he established those temples in the hearts of honest devotees. How wonderful this is. Chitrameta. Nabhitirasi hridaye kadachin nasamshayo va swajaye kadachit nirantaram yasya mano mukunda premaswadam tasya katam vishada. There was never any fear in Srila Prabhupada's heart, nor was he ever doubtful of his victory. For one whose mind is constantly absorbed in love for Mukunda, how can there be despair? Shri Radhika Prana Sakhantarango Bhakto Nama Shri Prabhupada Deva No Chet Katham Tavati Jivatale Tavat Kritam Dharma Paraira Sajam. Srila Prabhupada was the best of devotees, an intimate associate of Krishna, the dearest friend of Sri Radhika. Otherwise, how could he accomplish so much in such a short time, that which is impossible for others? So, in the interest of time, let's skip ahead to the third page. There's a few verses, the first one at the top of the next page. These last few verses describe Prabhupada's relationship with his disciples. They're very, very sweet. Yes. Shisheshu vatsalyamanantamasya pracharya varyasya padanti santa nakopi tanmandiramedya bhakta vipasito va shrutito nadrishta. The wise say that Srila Prabhupada, the most excellent Acharya, had unlimited parental love for his disciples. No devotee was ever seen hungry or thirsty after going to one of Srila Prabhupada's temples. Vitayatha putra kritaparadham namarshye devamayam mahatma kruta kadachit kratinam vadedva Just as a father would not tolerate the offenses of his son, so the Mahatma, Srila Prabhupada, would sometimes become angry and speak strong words. But actually his heart is as soft as fresh butter. Beautiful. Ghora paradhan abhimatra nitya Shamyet Prabhurnaiva Sanikrinasya Chandrakimasman Dahati Swatamna Jalam Chakim Shaitya Gunam Vimunche. Like a mother, our master could forgive even terrible offenses. He was never uncompassionate. After all, can the moon burn us with its rays? Can water give up its quality of coolness? And the final verse is in a different meter, so it'll sound a little different. Jayatu Jayatu Dhiman Satgurunam Gururno Jayatu Jayatu Yogi Nitya Chinmatra Murti Jayatu Jayatu Nityam Shri Prabhu Swami Pado Jayatu Jayatu Maya Sharvari Chandravanu. All glories to our spiritual master, the Guru of Sadgurus. All glories to the yogi, who is the embodiment of pure and eternal spiritual knowledge. All glories, all the time to the adorable Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the powerful sun who destroys the night of Maya. Thank you all so very much for staying a little extra while today. Hare Krishna.